How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Top Buy, Top Sell here in the A1 Edge Finder, where we're going over our number one buy and our number one sell setup currently listed in the Edge Finder. Now, if you're a fan of these videos, then you know that normally I put one of these out on Saturdays. However, I had to leave the office a little bit early on Friday, but that also means that we have brand new updated COT data to go over. So let's go ahead and dive on into that. But before we get to that, actually, I want to mention one thing really quickly, and that's that the Edge Finder right now is actually 50% off. We had our summer software sale earlier in the month, the first week of the month. We had the Edge Finder 50% off, and we decided to bring it back for the end of the month as well. So there's only a few more days to get the Edge Finder at this crazy 50% discount. So if you've been interested in the Edge Finder, or if you've been thinking about getting it, now is the best time to do it. All right, it is 50% off. You can find it down in the links in the description below or on our website, a1trading.com. and use promo code A1YT at checkout for a 50% discount on the Edge Finder. It is the best time of the year to get it because it is half off right now. But with that, let's go ahead and go over this new COT data. It was updated on Friday. And we can see that over here on the short side of things, doesn't look like anything has really changed. We still have the Swiss franc as the most short asset from COT traders with 89.49% of open positions on the Swiss franc right now. They are short positions, followed closely by the Canadian dollar, and the Japanese yen still pretty short, maybe not quite as short as it was last week, but still pretty heavily short on the Japanese yen. The dollar at the moment is sitting at 71.6% long. That means that with open dollar positions, COT traders right now, 71.6 of them of those open positions are long positions on the dollar. And we still see silver, the pound, oil, and gold at the most long from COT traders. Gold being the most long, 83.29% of open gold positions from COT traders are long positions. Now we can check out our latest weekly COT filing, and the Japanese yen was actually our most positive change of the week. I could kind of tell that just by looking at this. It didn't look like it was quite as short as I remembered it being. I remembered it looking more similar to the Swiss franc and the CAD, the Canadian dollar here. But we can actually see from last week to this week that COT traders opened 17,034 long contracts on the Japanese yen, and they closed out of 26,930 short contracts. So overall, it is still very short. However, a lot of long contracts opening, a lot of short contracts getting closed. The overall net change percentage was over 8%. So that is something to keep an eye out on. Even though the Japanese yen is still very short at the moment, COT sentiment might be shifting, and we might see another positive week going into next week if they add more long contracts and continue to close short contracts. So something to keep an eye out for. Right under that, actually, the Nikkei, the Japanese stock market, we see something similar. 1,297 long contracts opened, 929 short contracts closed, but overall it is still long, and honestly just got even more long from last week to this week. Let's check out our most short. It's the New Zealand dollar with 4,266 long contracts getting closed and 3,781 short contracts being opened. There's only 30,000 long contracts open and 25,000 short contracts open, so it is still pretty 50-50, but overall, when you compare the amount of long contracts and the amount of short contracts and how many were closed and how many were opened, this is percentage-wise our biggest short change, if you will. That is the New Zealand dollar there. So I'll let you pause the video and take a closer look at the latest weekly COT filing if you choose to do so, but I'm going to go ahead and move on into retail positioning next, and we're going to start with our major currency pairs only. So right now, the crowd, or what day traders are long and short on when it comes to US dollar pairs, we see USD CHF, NZD USD, and Aussie USD all up above 60% long here, and those are bearish indicators for us. Whereas USD CAD is the only one favored above 60% here on the short side, here at 78%, and that is a bullish indicator for us. The reason that we use a contrarian signal for retail positioning is because more often than not, the crowd or the overall, day traders and whatnot typically get it wrong in the market. That's not to say that they do every single time, but this is just one of many things that our edge finder biases score off of. And so these would be contrarian signals. When the overall crowd is really heavily long on something, we are looking for short positions, and when they are overly short on something, we are looking for long positions in most cases. Now let's check out minor currency pairs. So we have a big list here. They are long up over 60% on all of these pairs here, and all of these pairs down here. They are short over 60%. Again, all these pairs here. We can finish up with our indices, metals, crypto, and commodities. Throw all of those into one, and there we go. So all of these things here long up over 60% from day traders, and the UK 100 and S&P 500 are both favored over 60% on the short side. So there's an update on retail positioning as well as COT data. Let's jump back on into top setups. I'm going to remove any neutral biases that we may have and leave us with our bullish and bearish setups. So right now, a big list of bullish setups, just two very bullish setups, the Dow or US 30 and pound CAD with a score of plus 13 right now. We have a solid amount of bearish setups as well, and three very bearish setups, with CAD yen being the most bearish at a negative 16 score. That is a very low score. So I think we're going to take a look at pound CAD. It is our most positive score at plus 13, and we'll take a look at CAD yen, our most negative score here at minus 16. So let's start off like we normally do with our bullish setup first. I'm going to head on into Forex, and we're going to break down pound CAD right here at the very top. And here we go. So a very bullish bias on pound CAD, score of plus 13. COT data is a score of plus 2, and retail sentiment a score of plus 1. Taking a look up here at the COT data, we see that COT traders are favored long, 80% on the pound right now, and of course favored short 88.5% here on the Canadian dollar. The weekly change for the pound was positive, and the weekly change for the Canadian dollar was negative. We see retail positioning here as well. 87% of retail traders are shorting pound CAD at the moment, and that is why we are giving it a plus 1 score. Seasonality is a score of minus 1. We can see here that over the last 10 years averaged together, pound CAD typically trades lower in the month of July. Our trend reading is a score of plus 1, and let's check out our price forecast tab here to see what the actual daily chart looks like. So I'm going to pull up GBP, CAD, pound CAD, and there we go. So we can see that this month it actually has been trending higher. It had a really strong uptrend earlier in the month. It has slowed down just a bit, but over the past couple of days it has moved higher slowly and steadily, and price forecast predicts that that is going to continue to be the case. Finish up here with our fundamental data. We see GDP, manufacturing PMI, services PMI, inflation, and employment change, all with scores of plus 2 here. Interest rates, a score of minus 1, unemployment rate, a score of plus 1, and retail sales are 0 or neutral. Now, when it comes to fundamental data in these data scanner pages, we tried to simplify it as much as possible to be just a really quick glance, and you get basically what you need to know. So right, what we're looking at here is we see GDP-A and GDP-B, A being the first currency pair listed, so that would be the pound, and B being the second currency pair listed, that would be the Canadian dollar. Now, when it comes to GDP data, did it beat forecasted expectations? Did it miss forecasted expectations? Or did it meet forecasted expectations? So when it comes to GDP numbers, we see that the pound beat GDP forecasted expectations and the Canadian dollar missed forecasted GDP expectations. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of GDP numbers or PMI numbers or retail numbers, we have pages and pages of fundamental data here for you to go through that dates back years. We have tons of information that goes back, weeks, months, years, all that stuff. You can customize it to look how you like, with different time frames and different charts and all this stuff. But here in the data scanner pages, we want it to make it quick and simple and easy to read. So again, we can see that GDP numbers were beat for the pound, missed for the Canadian dollar. We see the same thing when it comes to manufacturing PMI numbers, and services PMI numbers, the pound beat, but the Canadian dollar actually met expectations. So we see a beat, miss, +2 score, beat, miss, +2 score, a beat and a met expectation +1 score. When it comes to retail, both the pound and the Canadian dollar missed on retail numbers, and that is giving us a 0 or a neutral score. CPI, so CPI came out at 2% in the UK for the pound. It was forecasted at 1.9%. In Canada, CPI came out at 2.7%, and that was lower than forecasted at 2.9%. We see the employment change was forecasted at -0.42%. It came out at 0.06%, and the forecast in Canada was 4.3%. We saw it come out at -0.01%. The employment rate came out unchanged in the UK, still remaining at 4.4%, and the forecasted unemployment numbers in Canada were 6.2%. They came out at 6.4% instead. So there is all of the numbers and data backing up that very bullish bias, +13 score on pound CAD. The other pair that we said that we're going to take a look at, if I scroll all the way to the bottom here, was Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. So CAD yen, we see a very bearish bias, -16 score, COT data a score of -2, and retail sentiment a score of -1. Taking a look at those COT numbers, we know that the Canadian dollar and the Japanese yen are two of our most shorted assets when it comes to COT traders, but the Canadian dollar is more short than the Japanese yen is at 88.5% compared to 72.7%, and the weekly change for Canada was negative, whereas the weekly change for the Japanese yen was positive. Retail traders right now, 75% of them are long CAD yen. Our trend reading is a score of -1, and we can head on into price forecast. We'll take a look at CAD yen to see what the daily chart for it actually looks like. Let's see if I can find it here. There it is. CAD yen, and yeah, this thing has been tanking for most of the month of July, but recently has just kind of leveled out and been ranging back and forth over the past couple of days. Price forecast, however, does predict that it is going to continue to move lower. We'll finish up here with our fundamental data. We see that GDP numbers are a score of -1, same with inflation and interest rates. Manufacturing PMI is a 0 or neutral score, and services PMI, retail sales, employment change, and unemployment rate are all scores of -2. Taking a look right over here, we see GDP numbers for Canada were a miss. GDP numbers for the yen were met. Manufacturing PMI for Canada was a miss. It was also a miss in Japan. Services PMI was a miss for Canada, but a beat in Japan. Same with retail sales. Inflation, again, in Canada forecasted at 2.9%. It came out at 2.7%, whereas the forecasted CPI in Japan was met at 2.8%. Our employment change in Canada, again, forecasted at 0.13, but came out at -0.01, whereas the forecasted employment change in Japan was neutral or 0, and it actually came out positive at 0.37%. The unemployment rate ticked a little bit higher, forecasted at 6.2% in Canada. but came out at 6.4%, and the forecasted employment change in Japan was 2.6%, but it actually came out at 2.5%. So there we go. There is all the data and numbers backing up that -16 very bearish bias on CAD yen. I want to remind you one more time that if you enjoyed what you saw in this video and you want to get the Edge Finder for yourself, it is 50% off right now. You can find links to it down in the description below or on our website, a1trading.com, and you can get the Edge Finder for 50% off by using promo code A1YT at checkout. Did you know we do a live trading show Monday through Friday with guests from all over the world? To get notified when we go live, click the bell button next to the subscribe button or check in at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We have helpful, free content in the description below and on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you tomorrow.